Hi, welcome to Frank's Vinyl Review, Episode 2. Very excited about this episode because we are going to review the debut album of Public Enemy, one of my favorite all-time rap groups. And this is their debut album, Yo, Bum Rush the Show. And this release comes from Def Jam Recordings Hip Hop's 50th Anniversary Edition. This is a special series in celebration of hip hop's 50th. There's been a lot of reissues and a lot of celebration around the 50th anniversary of hip hop. A genre that now spans 50 years. And without question, this Public Enemy album, while probably obviously not as influential as their second album, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, this album certainly holds its own and is really a jewel of an album. And we'll talk about the context in terms of when it was recorded and the release date, etc. So we'll dive right into it. I just wanted to mention quickly, this is sort of the debut of the Public Enemy logo. And this logo was designed by Chuck D. And I believe he was a graphic artist student. I'm pretty sure he was in communications as well. But anyway, Chuck D, that's his, Carlton Ridenhour, that's his real name, but Chuck D designed the Public Enemy logo. So that's the logo there. So getting back to the Def Jam series, which is, this record is part of that Def Jam series. This was right off the Def Jam website. In honor of the 50th anniversary of the birth of hip-hop, we're bringing out a collection of classic albums from the Def Jam vault. All of the limited edition vinyl is in this collection comes in our heritage maroon color. So the vinyl, including this one, is on their heritage maroon vinyl pressing, which is kind of cool. You know, it just sort of makes the record stand out in terms of this unique series, limited pressings, if you will. I was very impressed with the sound quality. So we're going to start things off. And you know, just to preface that real quick, I just want to mention that this album was released in February of 1987. So think about what was going on in hip hop in 1987. You know, Run DMC was huge. The Beastie Boys had a huge year in 1986. So really, the Beastie Boys and Run DMC dominated 1986. Run DMC with Raising Hell, their multi-platinum album featuring their crossover hit, Walk This Way with Aerosmith. That was huge. And then the Beastie Boys, you know, they just exploded with their hit, License to Ill. So many hits from that. So that was sort of the direction of hip hop in 1986 when this album was being recorded, most likely in mid to late 1986. So we'll talk about that. So jumping right into this record, the opening track, You're Gonna Get Yours. You know, I hear that opening sample and I wanted to know what sample is that? And as it turns out, it's a sample by Dennis Coffey and the Detroit Guitar Band on a track called Getting It On from 1971. That's that opening, those opening sounds, if you will, that you hear on You're Gonna Get Yours. You know, looking at this song really is sort of a tribute to the 98 Oldsmobile. The car, the 98 Olds, is mentioned numerous times throughout the song. And if you look on the back of the sleeve, it's a picture at night taken behind McDonald's, but it looks like there's 2 or 3 98 Olds. So these are the cars that Chuck and Public Enemy were driving around in, their posse, if you will. So this opening song really sort of is a tribute to these cars. As clearly they were, you know, they had a posse of 98s. So, you know, one of the lines that sticks out to me You know, cruising down the boulevard, treated like a superstar. You know the time, so don't look hard. Get with it, the ultimate homeboy car. So these guys just love their 98. You know, at the time in 87, I mean, this was probably, you know, and there's a couple breaks in the song, you know, when at one point when Terminator X is the DJ of Public Enemy, Norman Rogers, but when there's a break where Chuck, the band, Chuck and Terminator, you can hear the sound, my 98, Oldsmobile is so, and then there's some scratching and some, that's from another, I wanted to look up that sample, and that was Captain Sky, a song called Super Sporm, Sporm, from 1978. Just some really cool stuff on there. And I wanted to mention real quick, because I'm going to be reviewing other hip hop albums in the future, that I recommend if you're into this kind of stuff. There's a website called whosampled.com. That's where I'm getting all my information from samples on with this particular album. So if you ever want to dig into some of your favorite hip hop songs, you're like, oh man, I love that drum beat. Look at whosampled.com. It's a great resource. They have a great layout. They'll show you the track you're looking for, and on the same screen, the actual sample track with the option of, skipping ahead to where the actual sampled part is. So it's kind of cool. Okay, getting back into this, the next song on the album, Sophisticated Bitch, and I do apologize. I know that's not PC language. This is 1987, and censorship. This was pre-Two Live Crew. This was before Two Live Crew. So anyway, that whole, there was a lot of censorship things that sort of ran parallel to the explosion of hip hop, if you will. There was a lot of censorship. I mean, some of the material was, X-rated, for example, with Two Live Crew. So anyway, getting back to this song, it's called Sophisticated Bitch. And this one really, to me, it is sort of in that Run DMC, Beastie Boys vein, the sort of the fusion of heavy guitar riffs, with deep scratching, right? That's what Sophisticated Bitch sounds like. And there is some nice scratching by Terminator X, Norman Rogers, just one of my favorite DJs. I loved Terminator X growing up. So it's nice to hear him make himself known on this album. This album, the executive producer was Rick Rubin. So I think that's really his sound, the Rick Rubin sound of the 80s, with that early hip hop, Beastie Boys especially, early Run DMC, the crunchy guitars, with the scratching. I mean, no one else had done that before, and Rick was able to sort of to piece that together, and so that's how it plays out on Sophisticated Bitch as well. That's definitely from the Rick Rubin school of music, if you will. Okay. Next song on the album, Miuzi Weighs A Ton, just a classic. If you know Public Enemy and you know hip hop, obviously you know this song. And I noticed, obviously Flavor, he's on this album, Flavor Flav, but he's just like this little guy in the background behind Chuck, and I think this song, he really kind of sticks out. He's yelling, "Get down!" He's just encouraging Chuck, kind of cheering him on, if you will, in that accompanying role. And then, I thought there was an interesting drum sample during the chorus. So I went back to that website, whosampled.com. And as it turns out, it was Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, the Message. So there was some sampling of that in Miuzi Weighs A Ton, which I thought is great because, Miuzi Weighs A Ton it really is a heavy song, if you will. So to have Grandmaster's epic song, The Message, as as sampled in Miuzi Weighs A Ton, just obviously Public Enemy was hitting the roots hard. They know the music, they know the genre, and that particular sample. It's like, yeah, you hear it, but it's very subtle. You know, you don't hear Grandmaster Flash the way that they sort of layered it, right? But it's there, so it's interesting. The next song is called Timebomb. You know, really some interesting drums underneath. Really great flow by Chuck D on this one. Flav again supporting Chuck in a very nice way. And this was another one where I wanted to see what the sample was, and to my surprise, it was the Meters, their song "Just Kiss My Baby" from 1974, and that's off their album Rejuvenation. And it's a great song. I recommend checking that out and checking out all these songs. They're all on YouTube, obviously. But again, just to get a feel for Public Enemy, their roots, right? I mean, this is music that they grew up listening to when they were young kids and teenagers and young adults. So it's kind of interesting to hear this come back to life in a different form, in a different genre, such as hip hop. Okay, next song, Too Much Posse. And here's Flavor really sort of getting a solo shot, right? This is like on almost every Public Enemy album, and I'm only familiar with maybe the first 4 or 5, and that's when I kind of trail off in their discography. I was more of a mid-'80s to sort of early to mid-'90s hip-hop guy. I'm still listening to a lot of that stuff very heavily, but continuing to learn more, and we'll talk more about that. We'll probably focus more on stuff being released for the upcoming 1994 30th year anniversary. We'll tackle some of that stuff on this Frank's Final Review. But as I was saying, there's always a song on most Public Enemy albums where it's just Flavor, right? So you have Too Much Posse here, and on subsequent albums there'll be 1 or 2 tracks where it's just him. So it's kind of cool to hear him just solo. This song to me almost reminded me of a drum machine. It's just so simplistic. And then the last song to round out the album, Rightstarter, Message to a Black Man, and that completes side E. Starts off really banging. I mean, this is the Bomb Squad. This is a sound that we're going to hear more of in the future. The Bomb Squad, specifically Hank Shockley, Carl Ryder, Keith Shockley. This is the early Bomb Squad. Chuck D was part of the Bomb Squad. But this song, Rightstarter, this is them. This is the Public Enemy sound of the future, if you will, in this song. Again, nice scratching by Terminatorx. He's got some nice touches. Chuck, really just great delivery by Chuck here. He talks about mind revolution, and really, again, it's a foreshadow of their next album. So really just a tremendous song. So moving quickly over to side F, see, they go, instead of A, B, they went sides E, F for whatever reason. So we're on side E/B, if you will. This song, again, one of my favorites, Public Enemy #1. Okay, and the 2 singles from this album, the first one was this song, Public Enemy #1, that opens sides F, and then the second single was You're Gonna Get Yours, the '98 Oldsmobile tribute song, if you will. That was the second single. Public Enemy #1, released in March, I believe, of '87, and then You're Gonna Get Yours later on in the spring of May 1987. So getting back to Public Enemy #1, sometimes you'll hear this in Public Enemy's music, right? There's this sort of, a whining sound, or, I discovered, through some research with their second album, some of their whining sounds came from a James Brown horn line. It was actually Maceo Parker, just sort of a horn line that they had extended somehow through a sampling technology. So this one, this Public Enemy #1, has that sort of opening, sort of a whiny, what is that sound? What is that? So anyway, again, through researching at whosampled.com, it's actually Fred Wesley and the JBs on their track "Blow Your Head" from 1974. And that's off an album called Damn Right I Am Somebody. But it's a really cool song. If you listen to that song, I mean, these songs almost mirror each other. There's really, I mean, there might be a few other smaller samples on Public Enemy #1, but really the core of it is that Fred Wesley and the JB song, "Blow Your Head." Just a great song. I mean, it's you know, it was amazing to hear that for the first time. You know, because I've been listening to this record probably since 1988. You know, 89. I mean, I didn't get it when it was first released, but it's still cool to be learning about stuff, learning about new music. You know, 35 plus years later. So that was cool to figure that out. This one, again, just solid music, solid production, you know, very minimal, but just really powerful. Flavor Flav, he's offering words of encouragement. You know, you know, there is some swagger a little bit. You know, Flav says, "This is the 80s, we got all the ladies, we got a fly Mercedes," or something like that. So there's a little bit of swagger, but, you know, I mean, those guys have Oldsmobiles, right? There's no pictures of Mercedes. You know, these guys aren't Heavy D and the Boys. I'm trying to think of some other cats who might have had Mercedes on their album covers, but so that's just one of the highlights of the album, I think. Next song, M.P.E, the abbreviation M.P.E, M.P.E. And this one had a really slowed down vibe. Chuck's voice taking center stage. You know, again, more of that sort of mechanical industrial whine that you hear a lot in Public Enemy's music. And that kind of defines the early Bomb Squad, right? Flavor, he gets a few verses. And, you know, I noticed on this one especially, you know, Public Enemy, they'll repeat their name over and over. You know, you'll hear that in their music. Public Enemy. And it's happening almost on a sort of an unconscious level, but very effective. I mean, it just sort of adds to their whole vibe, you know, their whole mystique, you know. So I noticed that in this song, M.P.E, a lot of that sort of stuff. The next song, the title track, Yo, Bum Rush the Show. You know, they almost had an 80s video game style opening, you know, that's kind of what I heard there. Kind of an interesting song. I mean, lyrically, protesting a search at a club gig. You know, it's interesting when you start really thinking about the lyrics. Again, really great scratching by Terminator, with the bass especially. And then it's interesting on a lot of these songs, you know, we'll hear some really good stuff. And then Flav is kind of, at the end of the song, it's Flavor, and then the song fades out with him sort of talking and you know, carrying on a little bit. So that happens here on this title track, Yo Bum Rush the Show. The next song, Raise the Roof. This is kind of a different sound on Chuck's voice. To me, it almost had a punk, sort of a hardcore vibe feel, if you know, especially the chorus. But still very much rooted in the classic 80s feel production-wise. You know, sort of very minimal. And if you know what I'm talking, in 80s hip-hop, it's just, things were just minimal, right? The multi-layers would come very quickly, you know, within the next year. By 88, we're just hearing all kinds of great samples and, you know, stratigraphy, if you will, in terms of the layering of samples, right? These sonic layers which really push the genre into different areas. But here it's more minimal. This next song, Megablast, I thought was interesting. It's, again, another chill down. And this is a Flav Chuck duet. And Chuck's dropping out here and there. And it's, you know, so Flav is kind of leading it on. To me, it kind of reminded me of Night of the Living Bassheads, a foreshadow of that song on the next album. And that may have even been released as a single even before the album came out. So I think that those two songs, Megablast, Night of the Living Bassheads, definitely ties into Megablast. And then the last song on this album, Terminatorx, Speaks with His Hands. You know, it starts off as an instrumental. You know, there's some chanting by Flavor, and you know, it's just sort of a nice kind of a mellow way to end the album. But again, just to recap everything, a great album, great production. Again, you hear a lot of that, the Run DMC, Beastie Boys, guitar driven, combined with hip hop scratching and heavy bass. There's definitely some of that. There's the introduction of the Bomb Squad, which is humongous in terms of their influence on the next 3 or 4 Public Enemy albums. And then they became such a creative force. They would produce other bands, other hip hop artists, Ice Cube, Belle Biv DeVoe. I mean, these are just, so many people wanted the Bomb. The Bomb Squad, the perfect name because they literally were the bomb. Their production style was, very, very New York, very underground, like, sounds of the subway, sounds of urban culture, sounds of African American culture, jazz, funk, rhythm and blues, like, everything and anything. It was sort of a gumbo, but of urban Black America, right? That's the Bomb Squad, and just really, and often, oftentimes hard, sort of driving sounds, but just beautiful music, right? I mean, sometimes when you think of beautiful music, it isn't always melodies in A major or, what we tend to think of. Sometimes beautiful music is expressed in different ways. And I think hip hop has its own beauty. In the Bomb Squad, definitely, they were the innovators. They were the ones who they were catalysts who helped bring hip hop to the forefront in 1987 and 88 especially. So this album, is just a small piece of that, right? A piece. It goes in line. If you were filing this, I file my hip hop alphabetically, but in terms of like, the chronology of hip hop, and again, we're talking about the 50th anniversary, so it's fun to talk about this. The chronology of this record goes, with Beastie Boys, Raising Hell, with Run DMC, Raising Hell, with Beastie Boys, License to Ill, LL Cool J, I'm Bad came out in 1987, and the title track on that is amazing. So this album slides right in there with those guys. Eric B and Rakim, their record, Paid in Full, that's synonymous with this. Again, 1987, and the other pretty amazing debut record by Boogie Down Productions, Criminal Minded. Again, another jewel from 1987. And you think about what these guys did in the very next year, 1988. But 1987, very pivotal year. Obviously from 86 to 88. 87 had a lot of great music, and this one in particular. So when you're at the record store, and you're in the hip hop in, definitely snag these. I mean, I would say snag any of these Def Jam. When you see the Def Jam anniversary hype sticker, I would grab it. But this is a nice pressing. I'm a huge fan of Public Enemy, so I highly recommend this. And if you've never heard of Public Enemy, yeah, give them a shot. They're this is great. Again, great American music out of New York City and Long Island. I know Chuck would appreciate that. All right, guys. So thank you again, and I appreciate your time, and I look forward to the next one, episode 3, coming up soon. Thanks. Have a great rest of your weekend. Talk to you later. Bye.